Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for joining us today for the 1004 show. Today we have on Chris Hill. Many of you may know him as a chef and a business owner of a restaurant in downtown Norfolk, Three-Way Cafe. But since his time there, he's left to create an online brand for himself, Chris Hill Online. He's also the author of a few books and is a well-known speaker in the culinary world. This is episode 49 of the 1004 show. I'm excited to talk to Chris in this episode because we deep dive into relationships with your teams, with your family, with your significant others. And we also talk about the headaches that we self-impose on ourselves instead of communicating more. So if you are wondering if your relationship is as strong as it could be, this is one episode that you definitely will want to check out, as we deep dive on several strategies to communicate more with the ones that you love and work with most. Thanks for being with us. If you like what you're watching, let us know. Give us a like, a share, a love, a download, whatever it is, review. We appreciate it. If you guys have questions or if there's a guest that you want to hear on the 1004 show, let us know. Hit us up, Zach, Z-A-C-K, at startwithhatch.com. Again, we're going to be talking to Chris Hill. This is episode 49 of the 1004 show. Late nights are sometimes worth it, but at some point, you just recognize and realize that maybe it's not what you want to be doing anymore. We're talking with Chris Hill, who used to run a restaurant in Norfolk, Virginia, Three-Way Cafe, and at some point in the last decade, he decided that he wanted to try something different, maybe create his own brand. And we are excited and delighted to have the chef, the author, the internet personality, Chris Hill, with us today. What's going on, Chris?
Not much, man. I still do the late nights. I just don't do them on the customer's account. I do them when I want to do the late nights.
See, so that's more appropriate then, right?
Absolutely, man.
What's a schedule like for you then? When do you wake up? When do you go to bed?
I'm up early. Actually, I make a breakfast and usually lunch for my girlfriend every morning. Get some coffee going and get her out the door, and work from home for the most part here at the my office upstairs. So, most of it's getting organized in the morning, getting going, and then you do some consulting work, trying to do a little bit of writing every day. I'm finishing up my second book right now, so that's been press for trying to get that done for a while now. And you have deadlines, but with anything big like that, I feel like you kind of just keep iterating and iterating until you have to finally just turn it in. So it's been fun and exciting, and every day is like a little bit different than the last, which when I was working an office job, fresh out of grad school, I hated the fact that everything felt like Groundhog Day.
Very cool. And so you went from that corporate America, and you went to the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, and
yes, sir.
So you went to the University of Alabama, then you moved to Atlanta, and then in Atlanta, you decided to take your corporate America gig, hated it, Groundhog Day every day, and then you self-trained yourself into becoming a chef, if I remember correctly, and somehow wound up opening a spot in Norfolk, Virginia at some point within those few years. You did that for how
long? So I worked in restaurants really from high school on and off until even when I had the corporate America job, I had a little catering company on the side. So I always kind of wanted to get back into it. At the same time, I kind of felt like I had to go down this 9-to-5 picket fence route. Like, I went to a nice private school back home in Atlanta, and my dad's a successful financial planner. So I felt like I had to kind of go down that route. And then, finally I had to talk to him and said, listen, Dad, like, this isn't for me. I want to at least give this a shot. So that's when I moved up here to Virginia. And within the two years, I was executive chef running a business partner of the restaurant up here. And it was a lot of trial and error, learning as you go. I had never run a kitchen before, but I did get the chance to learn the management side of things and actually help turn a different kitchen around. So I understood the managing of people and the leadership side, which really I took my experiences in corporate America and knew, okay, don't do this.
So you live in Virginia now. You opened up this restaurant within the first 2 years. How long did you do that for?
So yeah, I was at the helm for 5 years. At the very beginning, I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know anything about food costs or menu development, or really even actually the day-to-day managing of people. So it was a steep learning curve, a lot of working and learning on the job. But did that for 5 years. We had the option for a 5-year option. Uh, they decided to keep the restaurant going. I decided to sell my share at that point. Had plans to open up a restaurant in Atlanta. Those kind of fell through. I said, you know what? I'm gonna try to go a different route, and that's kind of where I am now, doing the consulting work. You know, wrote the book last year, wrote this other one just now. So it's been definitely a pivot, a right turn at the fork in the road, but it's been a good one. You know, I get a chance to create my own hours. I get to work with the companies on my terms. You know, in a consulting realm, and connect with my audience on Facebook and everywhere else. So it's been a lot of fun.
So I know that things are better now than they have been in the past. Let's talk about when you realized at that 5 year mark or at some point in there, because I was at the same position, right? Where I work for corporate America. I hate it. I know that I want to get out, but it's hard because you don't know where to get to. And I believe for me, it was at least a year of me trying to find a position somewhere, but not just laterally going to the next place. And so I worked in TV news. I didn't want to go work for another media company because it's basically going to be the same thing over and over again. And so when you knew that you wanted to get out, what were some of the things that you started doing to prepare yourself? You talk about building up a social channel. What were some of the things that you started doing to prepare yourself to get out of that grind?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is ask yourself, am I happy doing this? And if you're happy and you're in a good place, then keep doing it. But for me, I worked really my ass off for 5 years at the restaurant. Didn't really see the returns that I was hoping for, and it was frustrating. At the same time, I was building this social media following, building a personal brand for myself, and was starting to get some notoriety in the chef and the food world, for my writing and some speaking, things of that nature. So and I always knew that I could make a bigger impact if I was able to kind of scale my message versus being in the kitchen every day, which I still love. That's one thing I miss probably more than anything is being in the heat of battle, so to speak, with the girl and the guys next to you. But for me, it was like knowing that, okay, you have an opportunity to do something bigger here to help the industry, which has a lot of challenges. Not only the industry itself, but also a lot of the people within it. You're not making a ton of money. A lot of times have long hours, so they aren't able to spend time with their family and friends and kids. So there's a lot of challenges that I knew I had not necessarily the answers to, but I had some experiences with those myself and started talking about them. And that's when I knew that if I'm able to connect with people on a bigger scale, it's much more worth it than cooking every single day.
I know you well. I would call you a good friend. So I'm trying to take some of the stories that I know from you and really get those out because I don't think people always get the complete story. And I know that you've gone through some very tough times, emotionally, probably financially, physically, every type of emotion possible to going through this venture, relationship wise, everything, right? I think we all have gone through these things and going through it. I believe that not enough people talk about the hardships or the difficult parts through it. We only talk about the positive pieces. And I think something that's been good with you as we hear the naval planes flying above you. I think what's been good is that you tell the story of, hey, like, this is what it's like. I'm not just going to give you the fluff. I'm not going to give you just the end of the road. And so I appreciate that. We're talking with Chef Chris Hill, chrishillonline.com, episode 49 of the 1004 show. So you talked about how you started building up your online brand, your online community, and you started getting notoriety. Like, what does notoriety look like And how can you? This is where I think people really get messed up. They believe that they can build a social brand, and they can make money doing that. And a lot of times they might be able to do one of those decently well, maybe not even getting the social piece out there, and then like the money will come later, right? I think that's difficult because most people need the money now. So what are some things that you can do to be building that up and financially be stable at the same time?
Yeah, well, and first, just to kind of circle back to the beginning of what you were saying, just there. Yeah, I've had some super challenging times, like you said, across the board relate with my relationship. I had a girlfriend I've been with for a long time now that's been supportive when a lot of girlfriends probably wouldn't have been. The times I couldn't, pay rent on time, and my car would get towed off the street because I couldn't pay the parking tickets, and I get another ticket from the meter maids, and I mean the list goes on. So there's definitely been the challenges. I can tell you that I was seeking the wrong type of notoriety before. I think it's important to have a very clear sense of your purpose. For me, I was trying to be a big deal. I was trying to be on all the cooking shows, and I was trying to be the good-looking new chef. I had a studio kitchen and had a fancy camera, and we'd shoot there, and I was chasing the wrong things. And then when I kind of made this big epiphany, I realized, well, what is your purpose? What are you going to do? And when you start serving other people, that's when I think the magic really happens. Because, as Seth Godin says, he doesn't know anyone in the world that's so generous with who they are and builds a business out of doing that isn't able to actually take care of themselves. And it's not a short-term play. It's definitely a long-term play because, for me, I definitely couldn't have worked off of my personal brand 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. But if you put in the work, if you are generous with who you are, if you're upfront and honest, like you mentioned, and I try and be transparent and vulnerable, you give people a chance to connect with you. And even if you're not a personal brand, even if you're just a brand, a lot of times, especially in the world we live in today, like companies don't really understand how to connect with people, and really all it is getting people to understand, like, hey, I'm here with you, like, or hey, we screwed up, we're really sorry, like understanding that people have emotions just like you. And when you're able to tap into that with somebody, then you kind of get them in your corner, then they kind of go to bat for you. And really the big thing for me was, I was talking with somebody actually earlier this morning about this, is a lot of companies, a lot of people, brands, businesses, whatever, they create a product and then, okay, now it's time to go find some people to buy it. Versus for me, I had people to buy it long before I ever tried to sell a product to them. So then by the time it was time to actually sell a product, I knew who they were, I knew what their pain points were, I knew what they might want from me. So then it made it making money off of them in a good way where we both benefit, right? I'm able to pay the bills through it. They're able to benefit through my message and through some of the lessons that I had to share. So yeah, everybody wins.
So in episode 25, we talked to Damon John of Fubu and of Shark Tank, and I asked him I got a similar answer from a different question, but basically it was, don't quit your day job. Make sure you're still making money throughout the whole process, because if you don't, you'll probably go under. So you started posting some stuff on social. One of them got picked up on Medium. You got 1 million views overnight, basically. How, of those thousands of people started reaching out to you, Medium was still a pretty new thing at this point. It's probably 4 years ago, and we're in August of 2017. So how did you understand those? So people are starting to follow you. How did you understand their pain points?
Well, I saw messages over and over, really of the same thing. It was, so if I just take it in terms of writing, I only got 1,000 emails that first month from that Medium article of thank you for writing this. Somebody finally understands me, like I feel like I'm having a conversation with you, like you know me that well.
So what were the pain points though that they were asking for? Because the reason I'm getting at this is I don't think people actually know what pain points they're trying to solve.
Well, and I think that was for me unintentional. Well, in a sense, I knew going into I had the same pain point myself. I had a relationship that I was trying to make work, but it was very frustrating because I was working long hours. I was trying to hustle to make it all work for the benefit of both of us. And a lot of people in the industry or whatever have the same issues. They're working hard. They feel like they're doing everything they can to be successful for the good of the relationship, but not everybody always is in line with that and understands. So I was talking a lot about sacrifices and what it takes to be successful. And even if things aren't working right now, if you just keep plugging along, if you keep working hard, things will turn in the right direction. You just kind of have to keep doing the right things and being proud of the work that you're putting out.
I think a lot of people want that overnight success. They want the quick fixes. One of my favorite things to do is go on Reddit, and I see these people talking about, oh, my business has been open 2 weeks. We're not making any money. Should I quit? And I just laugh because I'm like, you're 2 weeks into this. Like you've done nothing at this point. And it's interesting because people actually think that like, hey, this is a tough situation. But if we think about it, if we think about the best restaurants in the world, the most famous people in the world, the brands that we trust, the clothes that we buy, the Ray-Bans that you're wearing, the drinks that you're drinking, they're all from companies that are almost a decade or older. And so these brands have this awareness that keeps them going over and over again, yet we live in this world that people want immediate success. So how do you... And I believe in the lifetime. We're playing for the long game. I'm trying to make the Hall of Fame. I have no idea what the Hall of Fame looks like, what the requirements are to get into it, but that's what I want to do. And I think you're the same way. But how do you make sure that you can get by, that you can be playing, you can be getting some small wins in between?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and definitely. I mean, as well as I, like, there's a lot more of the grinded out type days versus the TEDx talk,
right?
Big type days. So,
how did that TEDx talk for you? Was that easy to get? Did they ask you to do it?
Actually, I reached out to them when I found out that ours that we gave up in Virginia didn't actually ever make it onto YouTube anywhere.
Yeah, so this is how I think you and I knew each other, but this is how we kind of first met. Yeah. And I don't know if you know this story, but I had to ask my way to get on that show, on that TED stage, and I know you did too. And I remember talking to the organizer, and they were like, they actually said that they didn't really want you to be on it. So I'm glad that you made it on it.
Let me know who the hell I was. But
well, it wasn't just that, but like I guess you talked for a long time. You weren't concise, and not that I'm concise in anything I say as whatever, but you get my, like, I love that you raise your hand, right? And you go after something, because so many people are like, oh, why don't I get this opportunity? And I'm like, well, why don't you raise your damn hand?
Right. Right. Well, and to go back to your point a minute ago, yeah. And that was 2013 or 14, maybe even before that. But I was I didn't have any sort of understanding of my message or any of that kind of stuff. So if I was the one that was hiring people to come speak, that I wouldn't have picked me. I can guarantee you. I can remember how I was in that conversation with the guy. I was scatterbrained all over the place. But I think, and I just blanked on what we were talking about.
Well, the TED stage, that's where I had my epiphany moment with 1004. So I'm talking about a concept of
no overnight success, and how you make it sustainable in the long run. Okay, yeah. So I'm actually writing a book, the one that it publishes on we're in August 29th, and it's called Crush Your Career: a proven path to a sustainable life in the kitchen. And it's all about, like, for the longest time, kitchen workers, which is my primary audience, they go in, they do good work for a shift. You get paid for 40 hours a week, 10, 12, however many dollars an hour, and you go back, the next day or the next week, whatever. And that's and then you pay the bills and keep doing it over and over again. Well, I learned that, if I build a brand for myself, I can create all these opportunities. And so my revenue, my bank account, isn't necessarily dependent on me being at the restaurant every day all the time. I can, even before these books that are on Amazon now, I had a cookbook, actually two different cookbooks. One was actually printed, and one that was book. I found different so that even if I wasn't owning a restaurant, if I was line cook or sous chef somewhere and I got fired, oh, I still have these two or three other income streams that are going to allow me to tread water while I'm trying to figure out the next steps. So I think it's taking your career by the horns and saying this is my career. Like I'm in this for the long haul. 30 years from now, I was at the point, and it's all because of what I decided to do, today and tomorrow and the next day. And if you realize that each day you have an opportunity to, build that brand for yourself, and it might sound like it's vain or like it's even not that important, but creating like an Instagram account and things like that. That I mean, so many people reach out to me looking for funding for a restaurant, and I say, all right, well, if I'm looking to invest in a restaurant and I can't find anything about you, but you want to open up a seafood restaurant, why would I give you money? Versus if somebody reaches out to me saying, hey, Chris, I'd love for you to invest in my restaurant. Here's my website. Here's my Instagram page. They have all these different pictures of oysters and clams and soft-shell crabs and tutorials. Well, of course, I'm going to lean towards a person that has a footprint out there that shows they know what they're talking about and people care about.
So you had epiphany. You've had a lot of epiphany moments. One of mine was actually when I met you on the TED stage and recognized that, hey, there might be something bigger to do with that. How do you take an epiphany and turn that into action?
That's a good question. I think it's first of all seeing what can I do with this realization that I've come up with. Is it something that I'm experiencing because I have a pain in my own life that I can maybe help other people with? That's kind of how it was for me. So I think it's important to see beyond yourself, and when you bring other people into it, maybe it's asking them what their thoughts are on the subject, or maybe it's just being generous and thoughtful and trying to help other people. That I think helps you go down the right path towards solving problems, either for yourself in terms of business or just for other people to help them along the way, which can obviously help the business as well.
You've taken a lot of baby steps to get to where you are, and I think that's important. Most people try and go for the big piece. You have a fairly successful Facebook page where you have 6 figures of followers. You have basically written 2 books. You have a coloring book, or is it what was the other thing that you?
Coloring book. It's a planner, a chef's journal planner slash goal setting slash for chefs writing out dishes and actually making them like the design of dishes with the ingredients that I always had like 3 different yellow legal pads. It's kind of scatterbrained all over the place, being super ADD. I created the journal so that you had everything in one place. Again, it was scratching my own itch.
So it is kind of like a coloring book, though.
Sure.
Hey, coloring books are popular these days.
They are. It's insane, actually. I think it's insane the way they've taken off. Whoever started that's genius.
I know Damon John has one, so that's always interesting. Do you still consider yourself a chef?
Yeah, I'm doing consulting work. I'm helping develop menus, helping lead teams or troubleshoot teams. But yeah, I think that's what helps me to kind of stay in the game, is to work with different companies. And actually, it probably helps me even more with the work I'm doing now. In the last year, I've worked with a couple of different taquerias. One being the food truck that I'm working with now. One, smokehouse. One kind of brunch concept. So all that with different sizes, different locations. The smokehouse was up in a resort area that was closed for the most of the off season when it was really cold. They were trying to be open all year long and go from a smorgasbord kind of like Golden Corral type place to this smokehouse. So getting different experiences helps me to see the different dynamics that kitchens have and that management has, but also to stay in the game with food and on top of trends and that kind of thing.
I think that's important, staying in the zone, basically, and making sure that you're fresh in there. You would not go to a doctor who isn't a doctor. Yet, for some reason in the business world, people love to give advice on someone else's business, yet they've never maybe experience something like that. Have you found that in your world where people are giving you advice on growing the food business, growing your social channel, growing your book business, your consulting, but they've never actually done it themselves? And how do you handle those conversations?
I haven't with me personally. I mean, every now and then, yeah, like if you have enough of a following, you'll have some people that will reach out, or usually that's coming from a negative place. So I maybe have a small conversation with them. But what bugs me is there's actually a guy that I'm acquaintances with, I guess. We've done a little bit of work together, and he's a speaker, writer, kind of like myself, and he's giving a talk, something along the lines of how to crush your restaurant social media. Meanwhile, he he'll post. I mean, he doesn't have a very large following himself. He'll post, not in the right ways, not the right times, and doesn't have any engagement at all. And I'm just saying, why would I go to why would I go to this lecture at the National Restaurant Association show or wherever and listen to this guy when he hadn't even done it for himself? So yeah, I think we're the day and age, and as you know, there's all these self-proclaimed gurus. I think you have to be careful and make sure that people are who they say they are.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people will talk top line numbers and not get down to the meat and potatoes of it. So, oh, I make $1 million a year top line revenue, but actually I'm losing $100,000 a year. So is that a good thing or a bad thing, right? I mean, that's just financially, right? And then there's people like when I give talks, and I do a lot, I am always trying to make sure the people that are hiring me understand what I'm going to say. And so I gave a talk a few months ago, and the first thing I said is, I am not going to say what you want me to say. So I was preparing them to know that I was going to say something very controversial. And it actually went well, but I think all too often people don't, like, they're not themselves. They put on this fake persona, and they're not transparent in the right way. And I don't know, those are things that I want to fix, right? I look at those as problems in the world, and curation, quality, truth, the actual transparency of something. Those are all things that I think are important. And for some reason, we as a society have accepted non-credible information, and
Sure.
it hurts, right? I mean, so you have to deal with this short-term pain of this person who is producing some sort of content, and he's probably going to get some sort of following, a little bit of cash out of it, and he doesn't have that authority in that.
Right. Well, and to go back to your point with you're about to give a talk to a conference or to a company, whatever, and you're not going to say what they want you to say. If you said exactly what they want you to say, then they'd say it themselves. They don't need to bring you in there in the first place. So I mean that's the first thing. But then I found myself guilty of maybe not fluffing things as much, but I felt like in a certain sense a lot of my rhetoric or my writing was very theory based, not philosophical necessarily, but very kind of high, kind of looking down not on people necessarily, but managerial and theory made sense. But the whole reason why I wrote this book, Crush Your Career, is, hey, these are the things that I did. Here's some practical steps that you can take that I guarantee you will be successful if you start following these and are in it for the long haul. So, yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is to remind yourself of what your message is, what you're good at, and how you can actually provide value for people versus just kind of speaking at the highest level.
We give a webinar once a week. The topic right now is taking your already existing content and recycling it to, I think you've actually been on it before. And one of the slides at the beginning talks about how this is not canned information. It's fresh fruit, basically. And the reason we say that is because we want people to know that we've actually lived this. And that is a credible thing, right? It's not just we read it in a book and now we're telling you about it themselves. How often do you look back at what you've done? How often do you reflect?
Um, Fairly often.
Once a day, once a month?
No, I reflect a lot. I not in the sense of, I'm like cherishing the good things that I've done, but more of, what could I have done different, or how could I have handled this situation better, or how could I have been more of service to somebody that will help kind of serve the greater mission. Because we're all busy, we all have a lot of things going on, and for me, you know, a lot of times, I'll get 10 or 12 or 20 Facebook messages or emails from people in a day, and how do I go about dealing with those? How do I? Which ones do I handle? Which ones do I not? How do I try and scale some of this stuff? How do I you know treat it as a business, but at the same time, you know, give as much of who I am every single day. So it's definitely a balance, and I have trouble because I think I have a big heart and try to help people. So yeah, if I look back, it's a lot of times I wish I would have done this differently, or I wish I could have helped them more.
How do you decide what you produce that's free and what you produce that costs money?
So yeah, I give away just about everything for free. Even right now on the website, I have a chef brand building challenge. It's a 10-day challenge, right? You sign up, and I have a 10-day automated sequence. It'll send you a video that I produced with a different piece of homework for every single day. And the goal of it is to, by the end of it, you'll not necessarily have this all in place, but you'll have a website. You'll have smart social media channels. You'll know how to connect with people there, networking on and off line, really kind of setting yourself up down the road. Now, I want to be able to provide as much value for people as I can, so that when I have a book come out, like I do at the end of next week, I guess it is, I'll have something to stand on. If I'm able to be very generous and help people in a certain way, then once I'm actually asking for them to help and support me, well, of course I'll help him, because he was able to be generous with who he was, but also he was able to provide all this value for me and help me.
So let's deep dive into this 10-day challenge. So you decided to develop this because the people that are followers on your Facebook page and on your website were asking you for it? Or how did you kind of develop and recognize that's what you wanted to do?
Well, and I think that's a good point, Zach. I It was in a sense asking for it, but indirectly, which is I think probably why it was a smart move to make it free. People were saying, "Hey, I want this, charge for it," right? But since it was more of an indirect thing, I think the better move was to, "Hey guys, this is for free. It's for you. If you want to try it, cool. If you want to shoot me a Facebook message and you're looking to get a raise or raise money for a food truck or try and get on TV somewhere, here's a link to the challenge. Go try it." I found all these different pain points that could be resolved in a sense for a lot of the same reasons I read the book, through creating a brand and some relevance around yourself, which all leads to more opportunities. So seeing that it wasn't, seeing that it was definitely a pain point, but not something people actually directly knew, because the industry that I'm in, it's not necessarily like the highest with like personal growth and development in business. Not a whole lot of, not everybody's entirely business savvy. So trying to kind of sneak in the back door with some free stuff and show them, hey, like this can probably help you.
So let me make sure I understand that correctly. So your customers, your target customers, are typically people that do are not necessarily business savvy yet and haven't necessarily thought about building up their own personal brands. So you decide to tell them your story, but then also say, hey, if you want to build a personal brand yourself, here is the way that you can do it over the next 10 days.
Getting started. Yeah. And building a personal brand, whether it's in the restaurant industry, like I deal with a lot of the times, or if you're an artist, or if you're maybe you're just an employee at a company and you're trying to get a promotion within the company, or maybe get a better job somewhere else. If you build a personal brand for yourself and they're deciding between hiring you or someone else, the one that, if you have the same experience, the one they're going to hire is the one that they know more about based on what they can kind of dig up. So whether you're trying to get a new job, or raise money for a food truck or a restaurant, or just grow your career faster, a lot of the pain points I saw that weren't personal, with involving relationships, revolved around not making enough money, not having enough opportunities to create money. And that can all be resolved through building a personal brand for yourself.
So is that the number one question you get?
Indirectly.
So what's the number one question you get?
The number one question I get will probably have something to do with managing people. Employee motivation, things of that nature. Which is, I have this other book that I'm kind of currently writing a little bit on the back burner, called Lead Like a Chef, which is really one that people were asking for. I felt like a lot of the work that I've kind of started to focus on with the 10-day challenge, I said, I'm just going to go ahead and knock this book out real quick and provide value for some people, and that way, and show people that you can do. If I did it, you can do it too. Go ahead.
Do you have two customers? So do you have the people that work at a restaurant, like on the line, staff, and then you have the management teams?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so how do you communicate, knowing that one of them is basically ticked off at the other all the time, the other one is complaining about the other one the whole time, or maybe they both are complaining about both each other? So how do you talk to both of them, knowing that they're very different people, someone in leadership position and someone that's working for the person in the leadership position?
Well, I think at the end of the day, the leadership is responsible for when things don't go right. If you're lower down the totem pole, if you're just starting out, you're 18, 19, 20, or maybe even older, but you're still kind of farther down the totem pole. If you want to work your way up, you're going to need to start thinking like a leader. You need to start thinking like a manager. So I'm saying these things to you so you can kind of start to process them and make sense of them, so that you can start applying them to growing in your career. Does that make sense?
Yep. So talking with Chris Hill, you can learn about him at chrishillonline.com, episode 49 of the 1004 show. So let's try and talk your timeline through. So graduated from Alabama, moved back to Atlanta, worked at corporate America while still having some hands in the food world and catering company. Were unhappy with that, told your dad that you wanted to moved to Virginia where you have some family, took that opportunity into a 5-year career owning a restaurant, got out of that. Within the last few years of that, you decided that you were going to start building your own brand, built that up, had a very popular post on Medium that went viral. And I can say that because you had over 1 million hits. That is true virality. That turned into you building up a Facebook page that has several 100,000 followers and likes. You took that into speaking engagements, consulting, a book, now another book, and some other stuff as well. There's a lot in there. It's probably 8 years we're talking about?
Yeah, 8, 9, probably 8 years.
8, 9 years. So for someone that's 2 weeks into this, that's thinking about it, it's a long journey. What is your why? Why do this? Why keep going through all of the trials and tribulations, if you will, for 9 years?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine last night, and he said, I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't experience the things I did that made me who I am today. And I think that's true for, obviously for all of us, right? For me, every single trial, tribulation was an opportunity to figure out, what I did wrong, I got screwed by a business partner, which happened before, not at the restaurant, but somewhere else. There's been, challenges. There's been things that happened, every single step along the way. The only thing consistent with all the things that have happened to me is me. So I think taking personal responsibility for that in some capacity is important. Knowing that, okay, like I can feel sorry for myself. I can throw in the towel if I want, and nobody will give a shit, right? But at the end of the day, if I want to create this life for myself, if I want to create some meaning beyond myself and be able to work for myself and build a business out of it, then I need to take these experiences and grow and learn and build from them. And for me, that's been just as rewarding, getting past some of that stuff, learning how to maybe do it next time so that I can maybe help those that are kind of following my footsteps.
There's no reason to fail if you're not going to learn from it, right? And so if you're and I think failure a lot of times is the wrong word, but it's a popular sexy word. But if you don't learn from your mistakes, then that's on you, right? And so it's understanding that, hey, this messed up and that's okay, but I got to make sure why that happened and so I don't do it again. What is next for you? So you got the book coming up.
I think a lot of the same. I've had the opportunity, the last year to grow in the speaking. So I've spoken at most of the large conferences in the hospitality industry. The National Restaurant Association show this last May, which is the big one for the industry. So it's fun to be able to connect with people in that sense. And I'm actually in the process of working with a guy overseas who has a personal branding workshop that he's looking to expand over to the United States. He wants to partner with me on that because outside the personal branding and media training. So we're looking to go into some different culinary schools throughout the United States here and grow his kind of a joint venture type of thing. But aside from that, just continue to write, continue to connect with people, and try to figure out the pain points so that that next book and the next book and the next book are ready to be written.
What are your favorite tools?
In what context? The kitchen?
So online, or the tools that help you grow your day-to-day. And sure, the kitchen as well.
Oh, the kitchen would be my
the cleaver.
Probably not. Probably a 10-inch chef knife. I got one from Shun. They have some really badass knives. In terms of growing, I'm a big fan of Facebook, obviously. Yeah, I actually just tried on Facebook. They now you can go live with just audio. So I played around with that, which is kind of fun. So definitely Facebook. I've been doing a lot more Facebook ads. So, I'm actually, when I'm traveling now, I'm sending out, ads to the geography or the region, I guess, where I'm going to be traveling to, try and connect with people. So really getting tactical and strategic about all the different pieces. I think for the longest time, I was just kind of winging it, do this, do that, see what sticks. Hopefully it'll work. Versus now it's I have a really solid website. You're working with my buddy Sean Winter on that. He's been really helpful in just being strategic. And I think for anyone out there listening, I think it's really helpful to find people that are good at things that you're not good at. For me, I'm scattering. I'm kind of all over the place. So he's been able to kind of, reel me back in a little bit and give me some stability and be a person to kind of bounce things off of as I'm trying to make certain decisions that relate to my brand in the industry.
Yeah, I think finding those people where your holes are is very important. I remember that was a big thing in my life a few years ago where I don't need to be just trying to design something. I'm a terrible designer. I'd go to, I think it was debombbuttons.com. And Dave, who's my creative director, I show him some of the stuff now, and he's like, dude, like, they're terrible. Okay. And so now our brand is better.
I was just going to say, you remember when I moved back up here to Virginia, I was doing everything on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it was kind of impressive, really.
It is impressive.
I was editing videos. I was doing everything on my phone. But finding people that can do some of that stuff for you, and
And it allows you to actually spend time on the things that you should be doing, right? And I think that's where people, there is a time when you can do this. And if you're starting, you're going to have to do it on your own. And I think that you should do it on your own because you learn that process so then you can tell that other person to do it. But if you are wasting your time doing all these things that you know aren't going to really help you anyway because they're only subpar,
right.
you save up some money so that you can be able to outsource that to someone else.
And I think like for me, I need a good looking website. I need a good brand identity, the way it actually appeared. I could do some of that stuff. I have a master's in marketing, so I understand branding and how that works. But my buddy Sean, that kind of helped design the website for me, he's way better at that than I am. And I saw that through this digital magazine he has, Entrepreneurial Chef. Now, he did that for me. And in return, I was happy to offer him some value by helping to spread the word and grow his online platform. So it was a give and take. And I think if you can find those types of relationships where, hey, I'll do this for you, you do that for me, like we both win.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. So my team and I wrote a book. I was somewhat showing you this earlier, but we're on our first final draft. It's called the 1004 Method. This is it. You guys can take a peek. Right? Here's the challenge. So, the concepts are mine, but I'm not a great writer, right? The guys on my team, Dave Rint and Paul Rice, as you can see on here, we talk through the concepts, or I just word vomit something out and they put it out there. Or we generally talk about a concept, and that's why the three of us put it together, because I might have the idea, the concept that we've done, or how you can do this, and I've lived it, and having someone else do it is good. I'm not going to work on graphics. I basically, the things that I've now told the team that I should do are stuff like this, because that's where we're going to get our most bang for our buck. And if I'm in the trenches doing the things that they're good at, it's just not going to be great.
Right. And I would tell anyone, a lot of people that are maybe starting out, that are on the lower levels, that are trying to, get an opportunity from somebody. When I wrote Making the Cut, which I know you have a copy of, I had a kind of an early version that was kind of all over the place, a little bit sloppy. And I sent it out to a bunch of people. And this one lady, she was finishing up culinary school, a little bit older than us. She was trying to launch a culinary career, but also kind of like a social media agency, I guess. She had a copywriting background. She said, "Chris, I know a few errors in the book, some typos. A few. Should be a comma here, should be a semicolon there. I'd be happy to edit the book for free for you." She did.
Yeah.
The book ended up being better.
Yeah.
And then I was able to actually connect her with somebody else who was able to use some of her food photography for their project, and then she gets an opportunity to showcase her work.
We did something similar. We sent it out to influencers that we have relationships with, that would understand what we're talking about and not beat around the bush. And so one of the guys, I got to send you a copy.
I wasn't an influencer.
I thought I have sent it to you, so I'm a little surprised I didn't. You know what I did? We sent you the title with the subheadline. Yep. Okay, we'll get you a copy. But so someone else took it, also printed out, and there are thousands of edits. And so this guy, Jim Carroll, appreciate him. 15 hours put into this, editing it, and what's cool actually is that I was having a conversation with him. Jim runs the Hampton Roads Small Business Development Center. He and I think very similarly. And he called me the other day to tell me a story and was using our language from the book in the stuff that he was saying. I was like, yes. So it's awesome to hear that. Chris Hill, you guys can check him out. chrishillonline.com. Parting words, Chris. What do you want to tell the 1004 world?
The one thing that I get a lot of too, which we didn't really talk about, maybe briefly towards the beginning, but is keep things in priority. a lot of people, I literally get a message or two every week saying, "Hey, like my relationship's not going well. Um, I'm working a lot. Should I just focus entirely on work and get divorced or lose a relationship?" And at the end of the day, at the end of your life, I think relationships are really why we're here. It's going to be a lot more important than any sort of um, job you have or a business you run. If it's not going to be there to help sustain you. So I think just keeping things in perspective is super important. I haven't, like I said before, haven't always been very good at that. But if you can, then I think things will work out in the long run. And when you put things in the right perspective, the people that are in your corner are going to always be there for you to help support you when things aren't good, when things are challenging, when you need that kind of pick me up. So, yep.
How do you have that conversation with your loved ones?
I think to get kind
Well,
of personal.
you said you've been good and bad at it, so yeah, let's.
Yeah, I was a horrible boyfriend for a good year and a half. I was a complete asshole. Um, and I learned that and started making amends and making things better. And was trying to love this girl the best I possibly could. I think we all come from the best place we can with what we have to work with. But there was still a little bit of I was working really hard. I was trying to make it work not only for me but for us, so we could have a family and all that kind of stuff. And a buddy of mine, I had a conversation with, and he's like a relationship coach, I guess you'd call him. And he said, Chris, he's like, you're trying to do your best to love this girl. And let me give you an analogy. So somebody comes into the restaurant and they look at the menu and they see the salmon. Salmon looks delicious. They order the salmon and you're back in the kitchen and you say, you know what? I'm going to make him a steak instead. So they send the steak out to this person. Well, you might love the steak and that might be what you would like to have for dinner, but you need to actually put yourself in their shoes. What would be helpful for them in this part of the relationship? What would help them to feel better, more connected, more safe with the future? And putting that into perspective, putting that first. And from there, once you start doing that, which I realized, and it was like a light bulb moment for me, talk about an epiphany, that was it. Once I started doing that, all of a sudden, she was now more in my corner than I could have ever possibly imagined, and was there to support me and was okay with me, working all throughout the night, knowing that I'm doing it for the right reasons. But it's really understanding kind of where they are, putting them and their feelings and needs first. Then they see that you're doing it for them, they support you, and it just ends up working out for everybody.
You're making me question whether or not I'm being a good significant other or not. So I appreciate that, Chris. I got some work to do, I guess. Thank you for the homework.
I mean, yeah, I think we all do. That's what we're all here for,
Sure. Chris, appreciate your time. You guys check him out, chrishillonline.com. Chris Hill, to infinity and beyond, my friend. To infinity and beyond.
We'll have to get you on the podcast too, man.
Absolutely.